Shalom Chaverim, hello friends. My name is Rabbi Stern and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be watching another Jubilee video. This one's going to be middle ground. It's going to be groups of Orthodox Jews and what they're calling secular Jews meeting and talking about what they see eye to eye on and how we disagree. I'm really interested to see who they picked. I'm really interested to hear the perspectives of people who are like me and people who are not like me. I'm actually not sure if anyone exactly like me will be there. You see, I'm a rabbi in the Reform movement. The Reform movement exists to chart the path of Jewish life in the modern age. The other thing I'm really looking forward to seeing is what the issues are that Jubilee picks for these people to agree or disagree with. Before we begin, I want to remind everyone to please subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment. It helps. And now, let's get to the video. All right, let's get started.
Step forward if you agree. Jewish men should be circumcised.
I'm going to do something that might be fun. You get to see where I fall on this scale, so I'll tell you which direction I would go. For this question, Jewish men should be circumcised, I would go agree.
This is part of my relationship with God. But I don't understand why the rest of the world would do it. I do it because God says, this is my relationship with you, do this, and I will be your God forever. When God says to me, circumcise your son at 8 days, I do it because that is what Jews do.
I remember hearing a story of a woman who was on a transport to Auschwitz. She had just given birth to a baby boy, and while she was marching, she asked someone for a knife, and the German soldier mocked her and said, you want to make you want to bring an end to your life sooner? And apparently she took the knife, circumcised her son with the comment so that he should die a Jew. These types of images create such burning metaphors that our families, our grandparents will sacrifice their lives under horrible conditions to be able to maintain that commandment of circumcision.
So far they've both talked, both of them are Orthodox. I'm a Reform rabbi, but what I would say is I think the man on screen right now, this gentleman's point is much more persuasive to me, simply on the grounds that it's part of what makes us a part of the covenant with God. It's what makes us Jews as Jewish men. That's what Jews do. That's more persuasive to me personally than the horrible, the story of the woman that circumcised her son that the other man told.
800 years we Jews have done this. It's only been in the last maybe 20 years that people are starting to say, well, do we have to do it? The moment you stop physically doing the covenant and the religious things, assimilation comes in.
This would be a major difference between him and I, is that I don't think all forms of assimilation are a bad thing. I think there's many things about the modern world and about the culture that we live in, Jews in whatever country. For me, it's here in America. I think there's something good that we can add to ourselves in assimilating some things. It doesn't mean stop doing anything Jewish, but it does mean being a part of the world around us. So he and I are going to differ on that.
Just step forward.
I just didn't feel it was appropriate for me to talk about this because this is specifically a man issue.
I'm circumcised, and it's never been, an issue for me. Like, I never oh, I wish I wasn't circumcised. It's whatever. I don't remember it. So I have, I guess, some qualms with it about doing that to a baby when they have no say. Obviously, if you're an adult.
They have no say. You know what? A parent is going to make 1 billion decisions for their child before their child has any say. It's part of what being a parent is. That's part of your responsibility. Gotta take responsibility for some things, including your child's spiritual and religious life. That's your responsibility until they reach the age of bar bat mitzvah.
You want to do it, more power to you, go for it. But the specific thing of doing it to a child that has no say is something I kind of...
This is an interesting group.
Becoming a Jew, we have no say.
Yeah, but becoming a Jew doesn't necessarily mean doing something to your private parts.
This is what God wants. This is the first thing that our father Abraham was told by God to do.
When God first asked us to do it, yes, Abraham, who then could say, yes, all right, I will do that. But
He would have done it at 8
object-
days also, but God didn't bring it up until he was 99. Hi, my name is Rabbi Chaim Mintz. I am on the Orthodox side. I don't believe there's a God. I don't believe in Judaism. Belief means that I accept it because you say so. I know there's a God. I know my Judaism is real. This is the way God created me. This is my purpose. I'm oozing Judaism. Whether you recognize it or not, this is who I am.
I very much agree with that kind of perspective of it being kind of who I am. So I appreciate Rabbi Chaim's perspective here. I feel I actually share that with him, though he's an Orthodox rabbi and I'm a Reform rabbi.
I don't really believe in a lot of the religious aspects of being Jewish, but I do love to celebrate the holidays with my family. It's sort of more of a state of being to me than something I...
He said something very interesting. He said essentially, in some ways, the same thing that Rabbi Chaim said before him, that Jess just said. It's just a state of being. It doesn't have to just be a state of being. It is a state of being, but it doesn't have to just be a state of being. So, Jess, there's more you can tap into there.
actually do.
Women and men have separate roles in society.
The Reform movement is an egalitarian movement. We believe men and women can do all of the same things. That is separate from what Orthodox tradition says, and is much more defined in the separate roles of men and women in the family, in society. I'd have to be on the disagree side because I don't think women and men as categories have separate roles in society. I don't think that has to be that way.
Not necessarily that we're not equal in a certain way, but especially when it comes to Judaism, a woman historically has always been on a higher spiritual level than men. We are the ones that instill the values, the holiness, the culture. We are very...
You know, I agree with her that very much that in my life it's often been the women in my family who've instilled a lot of the Jewish spirit in me. So I agree with her on that. Where I disagree is this oft-cited idea that women are closer to perfect in their spirituality, and that's why they shouldn't do certain things in public Jewish life. Why should that mean they shouldn't be able to do certain things? Maybe make them exempt from it, but let them do it if they choose to. That's what my reaction to someone being on a higher spiritual plane would be in a vacuum. So I would say, why not do it that way? Instead of saying that no, they're so high, at such a high level that they don't do anything. They can't do anything. In synagogue life, in chanting from the Torah, leading the community in prayer. These are things that we want women to be able to do.
Strongly a part of the community, and it's important that I'm saying this because these little TV shows that come out, they like to paint the whole situation as if Orthodox Jewish women are second-class citizens, and
there are some
they just
unfair
want to do the
TV shows,
and it's so hard for them to exist, and they have no say and no life, and it's not true.
I don't go around saying, well, we're totally equal in all areas. I have different responsibilities when I pray, because like you said, my soul needs greater rectification to reach holiness, whereas my wife's soul, it's a local call. For me, it's a long distance call, but we have different roles.
I want to feel equal in all aspects of Judaism, and
Amen.
all you have to do is go to the Kotel in Jerusalem and take a step back and look at where the mechitza is, where the divider is between men and women at the wall. And the men have 3/4 of the wall, the women have 1/4, and we're all packed in there. And I wanted to have my time to touch the kotel and pray, and I'm trying to, have that moment. And it was really hard to not have that moment when I was there.
God
it is really hard. There's a lot of issues right now with the Western Wall and access, and groups like the Women of the Wall who try and get women to be able to do things like publicly read Torah on Rosh Chodesh, the beginning of a new month in the Hebrew calendar. She brings up excellent points.
You create a male-female for a purpose. If he wanted us all to be the same way of practice, then we would have been exactly the same.
God created 6 other genders as well, which are also...
We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a moment. God says, I don't trust men because women are holier.
I've heard that narrative a lot of how women are holier. I think the biggest thing for me is if a woman wants to wear a kippah or a talis, she feels like it makes her closer to God. Why should she not be allowed to do that? I think
just what I was saying before.
Add that to your kosher. Add that to the mikveh. In every religious home, the woman is seriously on a pedestal.
In theory, that sounds good, but I think in practice, men are, praying a certain way to feel closer to God, and when women want to do that, they are told they can't.
I just want to step in for a second. I want to say, even though I do believe what I believe, I still believe that if people want to do something, they have the right to do so, and I'm not going to judge them for it.
Yes, thank you.
I would only marry a Jewish person.
This is a very interesting question. Judaism is supportive of endogamy, the idea that we marry within the group. I married a Jewish woman, and I think Jews should marry Jews. At the same time, I think it's important that we be welcoming to families who've chosen a different path. So long as they're committed to creating a Jewish home, I think Jewish communities should be totally open to interfaith families where one parent is Jewish, the other parent is of no particular religion, and they want to raise their kids within the Jewish community as Jews. And that's how the Reform movement operates.
I married somebody Jewish, and I wouldn't have thought of going out with anyone else because marriage is not about love. I'm here to build the next generation of Jewish people. I'm on a mission as a Jew to keep Judaism alive.
Marrying a Jew is of paramount importance to me, primarily because I see what happens to many intermarried couples down the road, where I see the fights that creep up come Christmas, Hanukkah time. Statistically, the divorce rate is so high in this country. So why go into a relationship where you have statistical obstacles to prevent you from ultimately having a healthy marriage?
Because I grew up in a Reform synagogue, we're very accepting.
Okay, Allie grew up in a Reform synagogue, makes sense. I loved her answer before. It should not say secular Jew. If she's a Reform Jew, it should not say secular Jew at the bottom. Reform Jews are authentic, religious Jews. We just don't practice the way some of the Jews in other sects do.
Of different interfaith families and things like that. I mean, definitely is possible, but again, in all different walks of life, different sects of Judaism, it's so different.
So the couples that you are aware of that were successful in their intermarriage, what happened to their children? And specifically, were the mothers Jewish or not? If the mothers were not Jewish, under Jewish law, the kids are not Jewish.
The couples I know are still together. Some of them, the mother's Jewish, some of them, the father's Jewish. There are more progressive values coming up that say that, if your father's Jewish, we'll still accept you into the community because we want as many Jews into the community as possible. Obviously, not always successful, but I have seen those successful circumstances for sure.
A recent Pew study in 2020 confirmed actually the opposite of what had been claimed and seen before, that intermarried families led to fewer people identifying as Jewish down the line. We're actually seeing that with the effort to welcome more interfaith families, we've found that those children do stay within the Jewish sphere, which is not surprising. They feel welcomed. So we've seen that often that trend is actually reversing, so that Jewish children are coming from intermarried families. What Baruch says is not necessarily wrong for him. For other sects in Judaism, Judaism is passed matrilineally. So the mother has a kid, and that kid, you can always tell who the mother of a child is, so that kid is Jewish. And so if there was one Jewish parent and that parent was the mother, these other people would see that child as Jewish. If it's the father, they wouldn't. the Reform movement would, so long as that child observed all of the markers of a Jewish life. They had a brit milah, the circumcision, or they had a baby naming if they're a girl. They went to religious school. They went through bar bat mitzvah. They went through confirmation as the end of their religious school time. If they did all of those things, then they count as Jews. So it's a different but thoughtful process to determine who is Jewish.
I'm Allie. I'm here as a secular Jew and I identify as a Reformed Jew. I have dated a non-Jewish person once or twice, and it's something that my parents didn't love, and I actually kept parts of it a secret for a little bit. This is the one area where it's really important for me to end up with a Jewish partner because, again, raising Jewish families and celebrating holidays together, it just minimizes conflict. I just find a lot of connection with other Jewish people.
Just being Jewish isn't enough for me to being, oh, well, that's someone I want to spend my life with. My dad, who's Jewish, when he started dating my mom and when he married her, my mom was raised Christian and she wasn't Jewish. She did convert later. They married. It was an interfaith couple for like a couple years.
Every person who I've dated or who's ever loved me has not been Jewish, and I'm mainly attracted to people who aren't Jewish because I grew up Jewish. I'm Joanna, like Moana. My pronouns are she, they. I'm 20, and I am a secular Jew. My family was Orthodox. I feel judged by Orthodox Jews a lot because I'm queer presenting. I found it very restricting. Now being the kind of Jew that I get to be, it's a lot more freeing. I get to be me.
I support Israel in its conflict with Palestine.
Okay, you can always see you can already see a couple people moving. I would be too. This one's not hard for me. The answer is yes, agree. I do support Israel. I want a good, secure, prosperous future for people in Israel and in Palestine. That being said, I am certainly supportive of Israel defending itself from terrorism, and I'm certainly supportive of Israel having secure borders at some point that will ensure that Israel can continue to exist forever, hopefully.
Israel deserves to exist. Israel is our ancestral homeland.
Both of those things are
Jewish
true.
liberation doesn't have to come at the cost of Palestinians losing their freedom. So in that sense, I don't agree with the last part of it.
Right.
However, the conflict is a different situation.
Like you were saying, it shouldn't have to come at the expense of Palestinians. There is a conflict going on right there, right now. What's true for us is different than what's true for other people, and we should just be able to live in peace. I know we want that.
I think blind support for anything is problematic.
Yes.
I'm Canadian. Do I support every action the Canadian government takes? No. Do I support Canada? Of course.
Okay, I'm going to say something that's most probably going to explode this entire conversation.
Please don't.
In 1947, there was no such thing as Palestinian people. They were Jordanians or Egyptian citizens. In 1948, these Jordanian and Egyptian citizens were told by their people, go into refugee camps, we'll wipe out the Jewish people, and you'll move back. In 1964, Yasser Arafat came out and said, I am going to raise up a people and call them the Palestinians because we are going to liberate Palestine from the Jews. The question was, do I support the conflict between Israel and Palestine? I really don't, because the Palestine never existed.
My issue with it is that you just don't see them as a people, but
Why?
that's
No,
not.
no, I didn't say
that's
the
what it sounds like.
Why didn't the Jordanians take them in? Why didn't the Egyptians take in their citizens?
I don't know why that happened, but regardless, a Palestinian peoplehood was created, and we can't take that away.
But
In any event, whatever this guy or whatever any of them are saying, we have to deal with the reality as it exists on the ground today. And there are 3 million people who call themselves Palestinians who are living in the region. So we have to, or more total in the region. So Israel and the Palestinians need to deal with this and hash it out.
But terrorism comes from it.
Terrorism can come from anywhere. We have it in our own country.
I'd like to comment, I'm a little sick and tired of the rhetoric where American Jews have to apologize with this proviso by saying that Israel has a right to defend itself, Israel has a right to exist. You don't hear that language anywhere. No proud citizen of any country says America has the right to exist, England has the right to exist. Do I have to justify it? Do I have to bend over backwards to gain the recognition and the acceptance of those who are sitting there like this, judging me?
Well, there are no other states that are people are questioning their right to exist.
There's always this
Except for maybe
binary
Taiwan.
terminology also that's used that's very destructive. There is, are you pro-Palestinian or pro-Israel? Why is it one or the other? But this is the terminology that they use when they are only describing Israel. They don't say, are you pro-China or pro-Korea?
I want to support Israel. I love Israel. I want to love it. I want Israel to be a safe place, a safe haven for, Jews and people of all, religions and backgrounds. I'm not saying that I am against Israel, totally pro-Palestinian. I'm just saying that there are things, like you said, that Israel does that I, in regards to the Palestinian conflict, that I don't agree with at all. I mean,
this guy seems very confused.
What you were saying about there being no Palestine before, 1924, there may not have been a Palestine in the country.
1948.
A burgeoning and growing Palestinian movement and a Palestinian identity growing around those people.
Since 64.
That's not entirely true.
Look at your history.
I have looked at the history. There's a little disagreement on when exactly it started, but there has been a movement among the Arab people in that area to create.
Because the king of Jordan did not want them anymore in his neighborhood, and the people of Egypt said, "We don't want these people."
I don't think it matters why. I don't think it matters why it happened. It just matters that it happened.
Israel is not causing them to suffer.
That's not entirely true.
You show me one policy of Israel that makes the people of these areas suffer.
The settlements, when they appropriate land from the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and then they make the settlements and they make roads and bridges.
There are no settlements in the Gaza Strip. In 2005, Israel voted. Israel's Knesset approved the disengagement with Gaza, and so Israeli troops removed Israeli settlers from Gaza, and since 2005 there have been no Jews living in Gaza.
Transportation that Israeli citizens can use, but the Palestinians cannot use.
Fantastic argument. You're right. So what was the problem before the settlements?
The problem before.
What was the problem?
Why was there
rioting? Why was there terrorism before the settlements?
Why was there a massacre in Hebron before the State of Israel was created?
1927.
Why did
1927, 1929.
There is no groups of Palestinians that have never done anything wrong.
I'm just saying you can't take a case out of them in a vacuum.
Right.
I wanted to share with you that when Israel is being attacked, let's assume
it's a long history,
and everyone's coming after Israel, and Israel feels very isolated. I just want you to imagine what Israelis feel like when they hear American Jews being critical of them at that moment, when they're feeling so down.
Yeah,
Baruch.
Baruch.
Brothers and sisters in America to support them. And when you don't, you have to understand that there's a psychological toll that they feel. And I share that feeling when I see my fellow American Jews not supporting our brothers and sisters in Israel. You defend your family.
If my brother or sister committed a crime, was on death row, I would support them emotionally.
Who's on death row?
I would still have the bravery to say what you did was wrong.
Oh, he looked mad.
I have ancestors who died in the Holocaust.
This is an interesting question. For me, the answer is no close relatives died in the Holocaust. No. But some extended relatives did, yes.
On my grandmother's side, my grandmother's mother, I'm pretty sure, had about 7 or 8 siblings that could have been my future great aunts and uncles who I never got to meet.
Well, growing up in New York, I didn't know anyone who had a full set of grandparents. Pretty much everyone was a second-generation Holocaust survivor. I know that my mother was from Chernovitz, Romania. She was transported to a concentration camp called Transnistria, where the Germans and the local ruffians took great pleasure in beating up and killing Jews. And just as recently, over this past Shabbos, I learned my great-grandmother and my grandfather's sister perished at Babi Yar, where the Nazis would line somebody up on a ravine and shoot, and they would fall into a trap. So the Holocaust has very much scarred my psyche. In fact, many times I would even fantasize and think that maybe I'm a reincarnation of someone that died in a concentration camp in a gas chamber, because I have such vivid images etched into my mind, because it burns deeply within me.
What I noticed about the world, we call them Holocaust survivors, the children of Holocaust survivors. I, in my synagogue, use a different word. I call them the rebuilders. Because the way the Jewish nation was in Europe, we were not wealthy. We weren't, we were living in huts. We had small schools. We don't take this kind of things lightly. We rebuild. So I look at that generation, just about all the Holocaust people that came out, they said, how are we going to rebuild? You brought up how your mom was in the Holocaust. When she came out, what was the first thing that she wanted to carry on?
Have babies, have a Jewish family, make up for the loss that Hitler destroyed. Her children were my mother's revenge, believe it or not, her vindication.
Vindication's better than revenge.
I believe that I carry the blood of my ancestors in me, that I have an added obligation to bring honor to their memories who have been perished, and to maintain the faith that they so staunchly defended. So it's not just some footnote in the past.
There are many ways to do that, but yeah.
I'm an ambassador of their values.
An ambassador of their
Jewish people
values.
benefit from white privilege.
Ooh, this is quite a question. Jewish people benefit from white privilege. I could see how some could. You look at me and I obviously appear very white, but also when you dress like some of us religious Jews dress, like some of these gentlemen on the left, the woman too, and you wear a kippah, you're very visibly Jewish. That changes. People see you as Jewish in that case. Foreign, they see you sometimes very much as other. The stares you get are different than the stares you might get for being any particular race or ethnicity. But there is something that's different.
America has been playing games where they decided the Irish are now white, the Italians are now white, but 200
True.
years ago they were not. I was like 8 or 9 or something, and I was in shul, and I'll never forget, there were these girls that would always play with this ball. One day I walked up to them and I was like, hey, can I please, whatever, I want to play with you. And they were like, oh no, your hands are dirty. I was like, no, look, my hands are clean, and I checked, I'm like, see? And then the girls laughed at me, and they were like, ha ha ha, the dirt's all over you. And they said, you're black and dirty. And they laughed, and then they ran away, and I was just standing there like, what does that mean? Every day
cool.
I went to sleep, I woke up, I'm like, please Hashem, make me lighter like my sister so that they'll like me better. I just had this ingrown hatred for my own blackness because of what someone else said. And it also led to moments of me not even wanting to be religious anymore.
It's hard to hear.
Well, I disagree with the premise that there is a white privilege to begin with. I don't think in my grandparents' generation in America, when they were denied jobs because they couldn't work on Shabbos, so they didn't have any white privilege. When Jews were not allowed into various law firms, I don't see any white privilege there. Growing up in Queens, New York, having my face kicked in by the local ruffians, I think it is a myth. I am not saying that there isn't racism, unfair treatment to minorities in this country. I'm well aware of it, and I litigate it all the time.
If I took off my Jewish jewelry, no one would bat an eye. I live my life as a proud Jew because I want people to recognize my Jewishness, and I don't want anyone to find out after the fact and have maybe regretted hiring me or, things like that. But again, it's recognizing the fact that I pass as a white person in my life. It's hard to recognize.
White privilege doesn't mean you don't have hardships or have struggles or can have terrible things happen to you. It just means that in America currently, struggles that are hardships that you go through, white people don't go through them because they're white. They go through them for a myriad of other reasons.
Anti-Semitism has increased in the
U.S. in recent years. Yes, very sadly it has. I speak to the paper and the news here in Topeka about it. I unfortunately have to write about it. Luckily, we live in a very nice community here in Topeka, Kansas, and the Jewish community here, though it's small, is pretty well accepted, I would say. We deal with the Westboro Baptist Church, who are only a couple blocks away, and they still like to pick at us and tell us how much God doesn't like us. Certainly it's a reflection of how much they don't like us. A predecessor of mine was picketed by name. I haven't had that particular honor yet. But anti-Semitism has gotten worse in recent years. And as Elisheva said, it's really unfortunate that those who espouse anti-Semitism are don't really see the punishment most of the time.
U.S. in recent years.
All of them.
I agree, especially where I'm from in Brooklyn. I kind of grew up seeing anti-Semitism, especially even though I was a child. My first experience with it was, of course, the riots. And if you were Orthodox, you felt it because you're like an identifiable Jew. But if you weren't, you didn't know what was going on. And now it's so out of control that even people who don't look Orthodox experience it daily. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I run a Jewish Instagram page, and when you look up Jewish on Instagram, mine is one of the first things that comes up. So of course, we invite the trolls and the anti-Semites. And there was this one instance where these two 13-year-old boys were commenting all over my post saying, "I wish your grandparents died in the ovens. I agreed with Hitler." You know, these are two 13-year-old boys. Where did they learn this?
Because of social media, people can hide behind the screen, people can hide, and they don't have to in your face. For years, I had a radio show on KFI radio here in LA. And then from time to time, somebody would call in and say, "I'm not an anti-Semite, but."
Yeah, yeah.
The moment they said that I'm not an anti-Semite, it says, "Let me recorrect you. You're an anti-Jew." If we took the word anti-Semite out and say, "No, you're anti-Jew," do you know how hard it is for them to defend themselves? Anti-Semite's a cool word. It's not so bad. I'm just an anti-Semite.
You know, I never thought about it like that.
You know what?
Anti-Jew.
You're so right.
No, what you're saying, like, this is also something very new that we're doing that started on social media as well. In the past year, what some people who are definitely anti-Jewish would say is, "How can I be anti-Semitic? I'm a Semite."
I'm a Semite.
So
Exactly.
we started
All the
using,
time.
exactly.
You're anti-Jew.
So what we started,
Anti-Jew.
so the terminology that we have been deciding to use now moving forward is anti-Jew hatred.
We are God's chosen people.
We are God's chosen people. So, chosen is an interesting word to use in English. What being God's chosen people essentially means is that we are the ones chosen to fulfill 613 mitzvot of the Torah. Other people don't have to. They only have to do 7 things. And that's perfectly good to be, don't kill people, don't steal from them, establish courts of justice, generally be good people. And you get all the blessings. Everything is good. It's all kosher. Jews have to follow all the mitzvot, so we are chosen to model a sort of morality that is reflected in the commandments God gives us in the Torah. And so that is what we're chosen for. That's our mission, and by modeling that to the world, we hope that we can help create a world of more morality, of better lives, peace and prosperity for everyone on earth. That's kind of the whole thing. But not everyone has to do all that work. That's our job. That's what it means to be chosen. Not that we get some special benefit. And
people
agree.
always talk about Jerusalem being like the holy city. And I always tell people, I was born in Jerusalem, so that makes me a holy.
We're chosen, but our purpose in this world, because some people misinterpret it as privilege or that we think we're better than people.
Yep.
No. Our purpose in this world is to be a light to the world.
Yes.
Let's get to the crux of what chosen really means. When God created Adam and Eve, God gave them a religion. The religion was 7 commandments to live by. When the world was destroyed because the world wasn't living by these 7, God came to Abraham and says, I'm choosing you and your children to do 613.
Basically what I said.
So what does it mean really to be chosen? I got a bigger job for you.
Christians believe that only
Basically what I
Christians
said.
go to heaven and everyone else goes to hell. Jews don't believe that. So when we say we're the chosen people, we're not saying that we're the only ones that are good enough to go to heaven. Like you're saying, we just have more, a bigger job to do.
When I see a general
Yeah.
in an army with all of his medals on his lapel, and I keep thinking about how proud he is to be a member of his army, and he wears his medals with pride, I keep thinking, as a Jew, I wear my medals with pride. And what comes to mind in response to the prompt is the prayer that we say on the holidays. I'll say it in Hebrew, and then I'll translate it in English. Ata v'chartanu mikol ha'amim. You chose us above all nations. Ahavta yisanu. You love us. V'ratzisa banu. And you desire us. V'romamtanu mikol al shanos. And you raised us up above all other nations. There's a love affair between God and the Jewish people. I think it's very, very important that we maintain our pride. We wear our medals with pride. We don't apologize for who we are. And we do the best that we can.
I'm going to say it was a pleasure exposing the Jewish community to the world.
Hine ma tovu manoim shavas achim gam yachad. How beautiful it is when everyone can sit together and talk.
Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem.
That was very nice. I liked that they ended with Hine ma tovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. How good it is that brothers and sisters can sit together. Well, thank you for joining me. I hope you learned something. I hope this was insightful in some way. Please remember to subscribe and like the video and leave a comment about what you thought. And if you have any other videos for me to react to. Shalom.